Hello. Today is November the 30th. It is 5:38 p.m. My name is Michael Scott Forehand. Welcome. We're doing our regular infinite banking, debt-free life bank, private bank, whatever you want to call it. They're all the same thing. Training event, and this is a class that we teach. So if you're here, that means that you're either a client with an infinite bank, or you're thinking about using an infinite bank or a private bank, or you're a broker underwriter trying to learn how to offer or recommend or even structure these programs for your client. And hopefully you can get out of this presentation what you need. Our plan normally with these programs is we're going to run about probably about 25 or 30 minutes on the initial presentation. Then we'll stop. We'll have an open forum Q&A session, and then we'll go into a deeper subject. And I'm thinking today we'll go into, because I'm doing a lot of these right now, which is private pension stacked annuities that can be derivatives of these programs. So let's go ahead and get rolling. So we're talking about the debt-free life program, which is the words debt-free life. That's a play on words. And what we are using is an infinite bank, private bank, debt-free life bank. They're all the same thing. We're using it as a place where we can take advantage of some of the IRS tax codes that allow us to store and grow cash in a place that the IRS cannot touch, tax, or see, as long as we maintain and play by the rules that are in 7702A, and we don't let the program become a MEC, modified endowment contract. Okay, so initially, if we're looking at this from a debt perspective, and these are two common questions that you're going to see, the first being, are you 100% sure you're going to have a solid retirement? Debt is the number one reason that keeps people from having a solid retirement. And then number two, if we could show you a way to pay off your debt, or in most cases, a mortgage, if we could show you a way to pay off your debt in 9 years or less, would you be interested? And actually, what I find, having done hundreds, if not thousands of these programs at this point, it's not 9 years or less. The actual average is 15 to 27 years early. So I have seen these programs work on a 30-year mortgage, where for that 30-year mortgage, it didn't take normally 30 years, but we actually got the thing paid off in 3.5 years. So I've seen it work that fast. It just depends on what kind of debt load you have, what kind of funding strategy you want to use, and also what your end goal is. Because sometimes it's not just paying off the debt fast. Sometimes it's creating a massive tax-free retirement income program, which is another benefit to these programs. Okay. So if you're like most Americans, you've got some debt. This is not what the founding fathers had in mind. And especially when you look at the onerous rates that we are charged income tax by both the federal government and a lot of state governments as well. So if you're the normal American, this is what you see. About 23% of the money that you make is going towards lifestyle, paying for food, paying your Netflix and Hulu bill, all that kind of stuff. You're living. The majority of your money is actually spent on taxes, and they're hidden a lot of different places. So maybe it's food tax, maybe it's personal property tax, maybe it's income tax, whatever. But we know that we pay a lot of taxes, and governments love to add on little tiny taxes, luxury tax for your vehicle, for example, all that kind of stuff. They're doing this so that they can have more money to spend. And unfortunately, a lot of times, in my opinion, is they're spending on a lot of things that are unnecessary, or that maybe they shouldn't be spending on. So, but whatever the case may be, we're not going to get political here. So we're just going to say that the majority of the money that we make is actually spent on taxes, and it doesn't need to be that way, and it certainly was never meant to be that way, not when this country was founded. The next piece you see on that pie puzzle is 34% is going towards interest. We are taught how to get into debt. Programs are made easy for us to get into debt, and they're done by the banks, and that's how they make money. And when it comes time to get out of debt, they don't want you to know how to do that. And they're very restrictive on the information they will provide. So that being said, yeah, 34% on interest, that's way too much. 34 cents of every dollar that you make is going to pay interest. You're making somebody else money, too much money. And then finally, those three things conspire: the taxes, the interest, and the limited amount of money we have on lifestyle, conspired to put us in a position where we don't have enough money for retirement. And I'll show that to you in just a second. But 3% of the average American dollar is being saved for retirement. But if you think about it, if we're spending 23% on living, how long is 3% going to last? And it's not long. So that's what we do here is we try to fix retirements and we try to manage wealth growth and create permanent programs that will continue wealth growth beyond your life. And using, in one case, we call it the Rockefeller method, using the Rockefeller method to create generational wealth. And I don't mean your children, I mean your grandchildren and your grandchildren's grandchildren. Okay, let's keep going. So I mentioned I was going to show this to you. So if the average American makes $2 million in their lifetime, which is normal, and the average American is only saving 3% of that $2 million for retirement, that means, and this is all real, the average retirement for the U.S. citizen is about $60,000 is what they have. They're relying on Social Security. Anybody see what Social Security announced last year? That they're going to be cutting Social Security payments by 22% starting in 2034? Yeah. So we are relying, if one of our 3 pillars of retirement is a pension program called Social Security, and we know that Social Security is going to get cut, then one of those other pillars that we're saving, which is our regular retirement program, whether it's a 401k, TSP First, KEOSEP, whatever retirement program we're using, having only saved 3%, it's not going to last long and it's not enough. And the third pillar of our retirement is missing. And that's because the vast majority of corporations, and especially small businesses, they've done away with the pension programs that they used to offer as employers. So now we have essentially a 2-legged stool of where it used to be Social Security, personal pension, employee pension. That's what it used to be. And now it's personal pension, no pension from our employer, and now a Social Security that's getting ready to get cut out from underneath us. So this is not a good place to be. And what we've been doing for years is not something that we're going to be able to continue to rely on because it's just not going to be there. So we have to take matters into our own hands and make sure that each of us are going to have a solid retirement. And one of the ways we can do this is by using an infinite bank or a private bank or a debt-free life bank. Okay. So going back to the traditional American, if you're a traditional American, you've got some debt, and you may get the bright idea to go meet with a debt counselor or a credit counselor or one of those folks. And what you see on your screen are the solutions they're going to suggest to you. Go ahead and read them. I'm going to take a sip. So of all those things that are up there, only one of them works. How long can you work harder? And unfortunately, I see these people just like you do every time I go into Walmart. And I see an older person who's greeting me as I walk in the door. Not that there's anything wrong with Walmart, and not that there's anything wrong with being a Walmart greeter. I appreciate you. The problem is, I bet you're not doing that because you like standing up all day. And I bet you're doing that because maybe your financial plan or your retirement program isn't what you thought it was going to be, or maybe you got the rug pulled out from underneath you. And for that, I am sorry. I wish you talked to me earlier. We could have helped you. But where we are right this minute, that work harder mentality is not going to be something that's tenable for very long. Spend less money. If you could have spent less money, you probably would have. Save more. If you could save more money, you'd probably already be doing that too. Refinance. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Does it make any sense to refinance? Absolutely not in this market, right? Loan interest rates for mortgages are 7.4, 7.5% right now. And if you have a mortgage that's the last one I saw was 2.6% from 4 years ago or 3 years ago. And I actually had one of my clients call me up because their lender said, hey, we can save you some money. We'll get you into a new mortgage. We'll cut your rates by $600. No, they may have cut their monthly expenses by $600, but that's because they went from a 15-year to a 30-year mortgage, and they went from a 2.6% to a 7% mortgage. Doesn't make any sense. It's not a good idea. Consolidating. So if you have a lot of smaller debts, credit cards, personal loans, student loans, bank loans, back taxes, medical bills, a lot of smaller debts, lump them all into one larger bucket or one larger pile of debt that only has one premium payment, that is not a smart way to do this, because it's going to take you forever to eliminate that one larger debt. You cannot take advantage of a debt snowball, which is the only thing that you see up here that works with regularity if you've got debt, a debt snowball. And with a debt snowball, and I'm not talking about the debt snowball that Dave Ramsey teaches. That's not really a debt snowball. It's called a debt stack. It is an inefficient way to approach creation of a debt snowball, and it only works. Here's an example. Let's do the math. Let's say a person has 5 debts. 5 times 4 times 3 times 2. If a person has 5 debts, there are 120 different orders that you could use to pay off that debt. You can do debt A, B, C, D, E, and then A, C, B, D, E, right? So there's lots of different ways you could use, lots of different orders, 120 different ways to do it with only 5 debts. If you're using a debt stack method, it is, you have a 1 in 120 chance of that being the best way. Okay. And if you do that, if you have 6 debts, then you're going up to 720 different orders. So a debt stack is an inefficient way most of the time, 99.9999% of the time, to eliminate debt. A debt snowball, a true debt snowball, which is what we use, is the best way. All right, so let's keep rolling here. Better way, our method. Yeah, okay. So what we want to do here is get you from the left side of your screen to the right side of your screen. And I'm not telling you to save more money. I'm not telling you to go eat tuna fish and ramen. I'm not telling you to go get another job. Never said that. You don't need to go make any more money than you're making right now, as long as you're making your debt service. We just need to change the way you spend money and save money. That's the difference. Okay, that's all we're saying. So with the way we structure these programs, typically it should be a 0 cost for you. I'm not saying you're not going to write a check. You will, but it's money that you're already spending, and we're going to spend it more efficiently. We're going to spend it smarter than what you've been doing. So if we're going to do that, and we're going to move you from the left side of your screen to the right side of your screen, the one key thing here is, you see that savings column, that savings piece of the pie? In the left side, you're saving 3%, but on the right side, you're saving 15%. I want to put that in perspective for you. What that represents, that's a 500% increase in the amount that you're saving for retirement. Okay, now that $60,000 is turned into 300. And now you're having a much easier go at it, even though the Social Security is getting cut out from underneath you. Okay. So how do we do it? Well, we look at those places where we're going to redirect money that you're already spending or saving inefficiently. We're going to eliminate your debt as quickly as possible, because that downline interest that you're paying on that debt is a killer. We're going to reduce the amount of taxes you pay over time. I'm going to reduce that, in this case, down to 30%. That's actually a 25% decrease in the amount of taxes you're going to pay over time. Nowhere did I say that you're going to go out and get another job, make more money, earn more money. I never said that. All I'm saying is we're going to change the way you spend money. And if we can do that, if all we have to do is just change the way you're saving or spending money, and it doesn't cost you anything, and you're going to be way better off. See that lifestyle number? We went from 24 to 33%. That's almost a 50% increase in money for lifestyle. That's cash flow. That's, now you can take a trip. You can take a vacation with your family every year. That's what that represents. It's freedom. We can get back to where we should have been all along in this country. And then that last bullet, allow you to retire with a tax favored income. In my opinion, there's nothing more tax favored than tax exempt. It's a no-brainer. All right. So if you're here and you're following Twitter feeds and TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff that's out there on the web, you're hearing a lot of noise these days about infinite banks. To put that in perspective, last month of October, 104 billion with a B, $104 billion left the S&P. And where did it go? It went to one of 2 places. And we're going to talk about both of those places today. Some of it went into what Ted Brenna, the inventor of the 401k back in the 1970s when he was working at Johnson & Johnson, Ted Brenna calls a 501k, which is what we're talking about today. This is an infinite bank. And a lot of the money also went into places where you can get stock market gain without stock market losses. That's specific kinds of fixed indexed annuities, multiple year guaranteed annuities, deferred annuities. There's lots of different ones. It's just not variable annuities, because variable annuities, you can lose money. We don't like to go there. I don't like to lose people money. And I can tell you, I can promise you that having done this for years, I have never lost any of my clients a penny, okay? Because I use programs where you can't lose money. Now, maybe you're not getting the sexiest of gains, okay? But I'd rather have good gain and no loss than potentially have great gain and potentially have great loss also. This is a better option. All right. So one of the reasons why our program works better than those other pieces that you see out there, that other noise you hear, is because we prepare for the unexpected. Even though we're going to save money, store money, grow money, get guaranteed gains, get guaranteed interest, get a guaranteed, not a guarantee, but get a dividend. We're going to do all that. We're not letting you see all the money. There's some money that's hidden. And that's why this 80-20 rule is what we're talking about. What we're doing is we're putting money in a place where you can't see it unless you really, really need it. And if you have an emergency, and I don't mean I need a new jet ski emergency, I mean I need to help my brother-in-law out because he lost his job, his wife lost her job, they're going to lose their house, their kids are going to be going, they're going to go on welfare if I don't do something. So I'm going to pay their house off for them. So I'm going to sacrifice my program, go capture that hidden 20%, pay off their mortgage. That's the emergency I'm talking about. Okay. So we talked about this just a second ago. If I had tax deferred investment like a 401k, tax exempt investment like an infinite bank or a 501k, what we're talking about here, or a taxed retirement like a savings account, which one works better? And this, folks, the one thing I like about this language, this is math. Math doesn't lie. So if we apply the same variables to all three types of strategies, then what we see is a tax-free strategy. There is no way it cannot outperform a tax-deferred or a taxed retirement strategy. There's no way. Math doesn't work. There's no way you can do it. Okay. Now, could you get better gains potentially in a tax deferred like a 401k or 403? Absolutely. But in order for you to get gains, you're going to have losses. And that's why this is a timing thing. If you are getting close to retirement, 55, 60, 65 years old, you do not want to be in equities. You cannot afford to ride the market down and then ride it back up. You don't have time. To give you that example, the year 2000, one of the last couple of market crashes. In 2000, it took 13 years for the market to recover. In 2008, it took 5 years for the market to recover. Anybody remember what happened last year, 2022? Remember that big market crash? We lost 19.6%, right? And we had a great year this year, right? We've gained 16% this year, right? Nope. We are still down from where we started January 1st of 2022. We have not recovered our loss yet. And the most recent projections I'm seeing, we're not going to see it for a while. It's going to be 2-3 years before we come back, right? There's so many other factors impeding the growth. Got a war going on in Israel, got a war going on in Ukraine. We've got a lot of political upheaval right now in this country. There's a lot of factors that are affecting how quickly they're going to return. And I would rather have the return and have no loss than have return and have loss. So let's keep going. All right. So this is a financial program. All financial programs work the same way. They work in phases: maximization, accumulation, distribution. In the maximization phase, which is where everybody starts, that's where you are if you have debt. Any debt. And I don't care if that debt is you owe $200 on a gumball machine you just bought, or I owe $2 million on that piece of waterfront property I just bought down in the Florida Keys. Doesn't matter. Debt is debt is debt. The only difference between a $200 gumball machine and a $2 million piece of property is a couple of zeros. Debt is debt. So if you've got debt, then that's impeding your ability to retire. So our goal in the maximization phase is to get you to the point where you can retire as quickly as possible, which means we have to eliminate your debt as quickly as possible, because debt is the #1 killer of retirement. If you retire making $6,000 a month at retirement, but you have a $4,000 a month mortgage, that's not a happy retirement. That's a tight retirement. But if you retire at $4,000 a month income with zero mortgage, that's a much better retirement. So sometimes it's not how much you're making, it's how much you're keeping. And that's what these programs are designed to do, designed to help you keep more of what you make and spend less on debt service and debt. Once you get out of the debt phase, maximization phase, we're into accumulation. What that means is we are now putting as much money into our retirement plan as we can based on our income level at that time. It does not mean that your accumulation number may go up. If you're still working and you're still earning and you're getting raises every year or every other year or whatever, great. Then you have the ability to potentially put more in during the accumulation phase. That's entirely up to you. Okay. But the point is, you're not paying debt service anymore. So debt, that monkey is off your back and it's no longer limiting what you can save for retirement. And then finally, distribution. We hit that year. It's time for me and the wife to go take a trip around the country in the brand new RV that we just bought. Or it's time for me to go book a cruise on one of those worldwide cruises that just gets canceled, right? It's time to go do those things. That's the distribution phase. It allows me to gain access to my money at a retirement age, doing whatever I want to do with the money. It's my money, I can use it, okay? Unfortunately, a lot of those older retirement programs, 401ks, 403bs, KIOs, SEPs, FERS, TSPs, all those programs, they limit when you can take the money, and they certainly tax it when you do take it. And oh, by the way, if you don't take it by a certain age, they're going to take the money anyway and give you a penalty for not taking the money, right? That's all those programs. That's the dirty secret about those programs. You were probably told when you took one out, hey, look, I want to have a 401k. Your advisor said, yeah, have a 401k because you can put money in now, defer the taxes later. You can reduce your taxable income this year. Great, right? Nope. What's the lie? The lie is that you're going to be paying less taxes later because $1 trillion, $33 trillion in debt with a country that's run by politicians who have to decide to spend less money in order to get us out of debt, which they're not going to do. Or they can decide to give us more taxes so they can make more money so they can keep spending crazily like they are, which is what they're going to do. Taxes are going up, folks. There's no way out. So if taxes are going up and you're deferring taxes and all you're saying is by putting money into a 401k, I don't want to pay tax on this now because later on when I retire, I'm going to have to pay more tax on it then. You're saying that. That's not what you think you're saying, but that's what you are. That's why these programs are better. All right. So that's the distribution phase. So these programs are not new. They've been around for a very, very long time. The earliest one I can find, which is why we call this the Rockefeller method, the earliest one I can find is by John Rockefeller back in 1904. And he did it for a different reason than we do these now. And he used a slightly different program. He used traditional whole life back then. But what he did was he created an environment where he was able to grow wealth through compounded interest. And he actually skipped generations with it. He did this for his, at that time, 19 grandchildren and put $50,000 into 19 different programs for each grandchild. And those grandchildren are now, and their families now, because it's permanent, are now multi-millionaires, and they won't be able to outlive the money. And that's what he did it for, is to create generational wealth. Walt Disney used it to fund and grow both Disney World and Disneyland. Doris Christopher used it when she created Pampered Chef. Ray Kroc did it for the first 11 McDonald's units. He actually used infinite banks to fund building or purchasing, because that's the other thing he did. He actually bought freestanding restaurants already in existence and turned them into McDonald's. This is what he did to do that. And then finally, Warren Buffett does it to this day. And I heard that he has actually 14 of these programs running currently right now. So there's one thing that I see across the board with all these people on your screen. They're all financial folks. They know what the heck they're doing. And if I'm, I certainly am pompous, but I'm not pompous enough to think that I know more about finance than Warren Buffett does. So if he's doing this, I'm going to follow his lead. All right, let's keep going. So you want to harness the power of life insurance. This is what we talked about just a few minutes ago. And these are the things we're going to do with an infinite bank. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to, I'm going to talk about one bullet there. Future finance of future purchases. So what does that mean? If you think about debt and the way we're taught how to get into debt in this country, it's a circle. It's a cycle. Okay. You get to a certain age, you want the new toy, buy a new car at 18. Okay, at 18, I pay that debt off. At 20, say 4, and I paid $15,000 more for that car than when I bought it because I financed it. So now I'm out of that debt. Now I want the next new toy. The next new toy is, oh, I found a woman that I want to marry. I'm not saying the woman's a toy. No, I'm not that sexist. But what I am saying is husband or wife, it doesn't matter. There's an impetus or an instance where we want to get married. We want to have that relation, that long-term, start a family, that kind of stuff. And that's an expensive proposition, no matter who you are, right? And a lot of it gets financed. Braces for me. I had braces, cost my mom $3,000 back then. Okay. All these things happen. There's more expenses that come along. We finance it and we pay a lot more for it than we need to. Then we buy the house. And then we get older and our daughter gets married or our son gets married. You want to help them out with the wedding or help them out with a gift or whatever. There's all kinds of stuff that happens. If I think about debt as a cycle, and I actually use my infinite bank to structure that debt even before I pay for it. I just did this with one of my clients who wanted to buy a new truck, an $80,000 truck. Great. We put it into his program. We planned on him purchasing it. We did this a year and a half ago. And so now, because we planned for it and we've been paying into the program like we were paying off the loan to ourselves, now that $80,000 is in his program. And he gets to go use the golden rule in his favor, go down to that company, the car dealership, and say, I want that $80,000 truck. I'm going to pay you $70,000 for it right now, cash. And if you don't want to do this, no problem, because there's another company right across the street. And did he get? Of course, he got the car. He got it for 65,000. So the point is, money talks, right? The golden rule: the people with the gold make the rules. There you go. So that's that financing of future purchases thing. If you know something's coming up, it's great. You just add it into your program and pay it off. So let's go to the next part. These are very old. Wow, this slide's like 6 years old now. These are just some of the people that have debt. The debts that I'm running into now, I find it rare that I find a client that's got less than $200,000 in debt. So these were all very small in the beginning. It's much bigger now. My biggest debt that I've done so far is for personal debt. It's about $1.7 million. And we're able to pay that off for that client in about 4.5 years. What else? Well, there's lots of ways to use this program, but debt elimination is really what this presentation is focused on. In order for you to understand a better way to spend money and save money, you have to understand what you're doing right now. So here's an example of how you were taught how to spend and save money. So the first thing is you got a job, you make money, whether you're a W-2, W-4 employee or a 1099, it doesn't really matter. Or getting royalties, it doesn't matter. You're still making the money gets deposited into your checking account. It doesn't matter who you bank with, they all work the same. They lend the money out every night at the federal funds rate or higher, and they make money with your money. And they're doing this every night. The average dollar that you put into your account is in your bank for 7 days before you use it. The average dollar you put into your account earns your bank 61 cents. Your bank makes 61% on average with the money that you put into your program and into your bank, into your checking account, into your savings account. And they don't pay you anything. Or maybe you got lucky and they pay you 0.5%. Or maybe you think that you're getting a great deal because you got one of those high interest savings accounts that's paying you 4%. It's not that great a deal, folks. I'll show you why in just a minute. All of a sudden you decide to pay your debt. You pay a car. Let's say you have a car, it's $1,000. You decide to pay that car off. You owe $1,000. You take $1,000 out of your checking account. You pay you send a check into your car lender and you pay that car off. What happened? In this example, you made the money, you put into your bank used the money, made 61% with your money, and then you moved that money from a cash position, which is in your checking account, and to an equity position, which is now the equity you have in that vehicle. Your gain is zero. You made nothing. Your bank made 61%. And now that $1,000 that you had sitting in your checking account that you could have used to do anything you wanted to do with is now tied up in equity in your vehicle. This is how we are taught how to spend and save money. And we are taught this way because this is what's most advantageous for the banks. There's a better way. And here's the better way, which is why you're here today. Same deal. Make money. Money gets deposited to your checking account. Here's where the change happens. I'm taking that same amount of money, and instead of me sending it to my creditor immediately, I'm sending it to my life insurance policy. Remember earlier I said we won't want to create a new bill for you. That's not what we're going for here. We're just trying to teach you a better way to spend or save money. Okay, so that $1,000 is now going to go up into my life insurance policy, which is going to get divided into 3 parts when it hits my life insurance: whole life, term life, and paid up additional life. It's all life insurance. That's a key thing here. It's all life insurance. That whole premium that I paid, that $1,000 premium I paid, is all life insurance. So that's important because that's what the IRS is looking for. Did you put cash somewhere? Nope. I bought life insurance. Now, here's the cool thing. Because I'm buying life insurance with what's called a participating whole life policy, participating means the cash value of my program is able to participate with the profitability of the insurance carrier that offered me my program, right? Okay. What did I just do? Remember that money that was sitting in your bank account, earning interest every night, the federal funds rate or higher, or your bank, and you getting nothing? Well, I changed the game. I now put it into my private bank, which is my debt-free life bank. And now it's earning money for me every night. And now I still have, so now my $1,000 is sitting in my private bank earning interest. The IRS sees it as life insurance. I didn't pay cash. I paid a premium for life insurance. The IRS says, how much cash do you have there? 0. Okay, moving on. The carrier says, you just gave us $1,000. We're going to invest that money and make a lot of money with it. We're going to make 16 to 20% with it. And because you did that, we're going to pay you 4%. Okay. So now I've got $1,000 that's earning me 4% interest. I've got an IRS that doesn't see that I did anything but bought life insurance. That means all the money I take out of this program is tax exempt, not tax deferred, tax exempt. Okay. But I still have that car, and I still need to pay that car off. What do? I take a loan. I don't take my $1,000. I take a loan. I take a loan against my $1,000. That money gets deposited back into my bank account. I tell my bank to go ahead and pay that debt. That money gets transferred to my creditor, and now my car is paid off. What's my gain? My gain is 100%. Let me explain. Do I own my car now? Do I have an additional $1,000 of equity in my car? Absolutely, I do. Do I still have my $1,000? Absolutely, I do. Is my $1,000 earning interest and a dividend for me every day for the rest of my life? Absolutely, it is. So in the first example, I traded $1,000 of my cash for $1,000 of reduced equity and gained 0. In this example, I still have my $1,000 cash. It's still earning interest and a dividend for me, and I have the equity in the car. My gain is 100%. And if you're just having a holy cow moment right now, then you are understanding why wealthy people have been doing this program forever. And Robert Kiyosaki said it, debt's not a bad thing. Interest isn't a bad thing. People who are wealthy earn interest. People who are not wealthy pay interest. I'd rather be the earning interest side. And this is a tool to help you get there. Okay. So how does it work in practice? Let's go. Oh, yeah. Do you guys see Debt-Free Life Bank on your screen now? Yay. Thank you, Natalie. Okay. So this is a standard this is a blended family, husband and wife. They were both married before. They have 2 houses. And the wife in this particular example was a college student at the time that we did this. She was working on her doctorate program. The husband owned a trucking company, trucking company, which means he was a truck driver that contracted out. So his goal was to build a trucking company where he could have and own his own rig, and then eventually have another rig so that he could hire a driver and then really have a true trucking company with multiple vehicles that are owned by the company on the road. The wife's goal was just to get out of debt because debt was killing them. This is what their system was. Because she had a series of student loans, and student loans are evil. Because she had a series of student loans, they were going to be in debt for 40 years before they met me. And so in 40 years, he was 36 years old at the time we met. And when he turned 76 years old, they would be completely debt free. And their retirement program at that time would consist of whatever income they could get out of their rental property that was fully paid up at that time. That's it. Not bad. Could be much better. What's the much better look like? Well, when you look at the true debt in this particular instance, they owed $595,000. If they had the ability to write a check for $595,000, they could have been debt-free overnight. They didn't, just like most of us don't. Okay, so they had to finance their debt, which is why if you look at that big number on the right, that's actually the interest that they had to pay over time. Is it their debt? Well, I would say yes, because if they had stayed on their current track, they would have ended up paying $182,000 in interest over time. And that's $182,000 that would not have gone into a retirement program for them, which is, again, going back to that whole thing. Why do we do these programs? We do these programs so we can get into that accumulation phase as quick as possible, right? This is what their program looked after we did our plan for them. We got them not out of debt in 40 years, not 30, not 20, not 10, 7.8 years. One more thing I want to show you here. The last two debts, the penultimate debt, which was a rental property, was going to be paid off in month 71. Their final debt was going to be paid off in month 93. That's 22 months. There's a process that we teach here called mortgage chunking. And that word mortgage, it doesn't mean mortgage. It can be used for any debt. You could credit card chunk if you wanted to. But in this case, we used a mortgage chunking routine. Using mortgage chunking reduces the length of time by 16% on average between the last debt that you pay off and the penultimate last debt, the debt before that. So in this case, 16% of 22, we actually got them out of debt about 3.5 months or 4 months faster, which means this did not take 7.8 years. This took 7.4 years. That's not bad. So we got them out of debt even sooner just by doing a mortgage chunking routine. And in this case, by paying off their debt, they didn't pay $182,000 of scheduled interest. We saved them $70,000 of interest, and we got all their debts paid off in 7.8 years, not 40. So what does that mean as far as a retirement program? Now remember, folks, when I did this for these people, they weren't going to pay anything more than what they were paying at the time that I met them. So this was a zero-cost program for them. All we did was find places where they were spending money inefficiently, overpaying debts, or saving money inefficiently, putting too much money into their 401ks, overfunding a 401k when they weren't getting a match. And this is what happened. At the bottom of your screen, you see that number. In 40 years, you could potentially have $4.8 million. If they stayed on their current track, they would be debt-free, have 100% equity in 2 properties, and have an income stream from one of those properties as a rental. That would have been their retirement program. By using this program without spending any more money than they're spending right now, they were able to eliminate their debt in 7.8 years, save a ton more money for retirement, and have a retirement nest egg of $4.8 million cash, plus 2 houses that have 100% equity, plus one of those being a rental property. So this didn't cost them a penny. And that's the beautiful part about these programs. So that's the end of that presentation. So I'm going to sit up for a second. You guys can unmute, ask any questions that you like, and I will be prepared, hopefully, to answer the question. It might even be a correct answer. We'll see. Is everybody stunned? Did I put everybody to sleep? That was my goal, because you all looked tired, and I thought that maybe you guys should get an early night's sleep. So come listen to Forehand for 20 minutes and let me put you right out. Hey, Bill.
Question.
Right on.
Back on, I think it was slide 20, 19, somewhere in there. There's the before and after.
All right, hold on one second. Which one are we looking at? Are we looking
Way
at this?
back, way back, we got the donut graphs, whatever they're called,
All right.
where you had the before and after. I think it was around slide 20, somewhere in there.
All right. Hold on one second. Let me get it back up.
But it basically shows that, with after DFL in place, you owe zero.
Right.
It still shows 22% interest on the graph. So I'm trying to
Hold on one
kinda-
second. Yeah, I want to make sure this is interesting. I want to make sure we're doing what you said. Look at. All right. So you see my debt-free life screen?
Yes,
All right. Which one?
right there.
Here. Okay.
That one, and the one before, they show the same thing.
This one?
Down there is where I kind of noticed it. Versus after using debt-free life program 0. So what is the graph, sort of depicting? Is this like your lifetime of
So this is showing
spending?
what happens by using a debt-free life program and using a repurposing of the money that you're spending or saving inefficiently. So when we started the program, we had $250,000 worth of debt. When we finished the program, the debt's gone. But what's happened is we're able to repurpose those funds. And one of the interesting things about debt-free life programs, depending on how they're structured, is that they capture about 60% of whatever the debt load is as a retirement program, as cash in a tax-free retirement program. So if we're doing, and that's where these numbers are coming from. If I have the majority of my, not majority, if I have a portion of my retirement coming from a tax-exempt retirement program, then I am by default limiting my interest or the income I'm going to pay on that income. And that's where we're getting that number from. It's coming from a reduction of income tax that I'm going to pay over time, because I'm focusing more on a tax-exempt retirement program than a tax-deferred retirement program. So that's where that 10% delta is coming from.
Between, the 10% on the taxes, the 40% to 30%.
Right. That's where that number.
Okay, and then the interest is going from 34% to 22%.
Right.
That's because you're paying less interest to the banks, but this graph is showing sort of a point in time, or it says you have no more debt.
Right. So this is
22%
what we're looking at here is we're looking at the course of the life of the program. So without the program, I'm going to pay 34% of my income towards interest over time. Without the program. With the program, because I'm going to be eliminating those debts much faster than I ever thought possible, then the amount of interest, the amount of scheduled interest that I would have paid on the left side of your screen, I'm not paying that anymore.
Right. That makes sense.
So I'm saving a ton of money. And that was that last illustration that we showed where we said, we saved $72,000 of scheduled interest, and we had 180 on schedule. So 72 divided by 180, that means we reduced our taxes by 40%, which falls right in line with what we're looking at here.
Right. Yeah. So this is over the course of the program is kind of what it's pointing out. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Good question. Anything else? Come on, give me a hard one. All right. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Kristen. All right, Natalie. What you got?
For someone, like I had a client that I was trying to help a couple weeks ago, and I told him, to get his attention, I told him about paying off his debt in 9 years or less. And then when we ran the amortization schedules based on how he's paying off his debts now and how he could redirect everything, it was like 14 years. So I almost felt like I was falsely advertising it in a way.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
What software are you using to do your illustration?
Well, I'm not using it yet. I was resetting to Rick Helm, and he was using it was Forrester's, I think.
There's your problem. Wrong carrier.
He was doing, it was DFL. He was using the DFL software.
Wrong carrier.
Oh.
Yeah. So we have 3 great carriers that we use for this stuff. We've got Forrester's, we've got Lafayette, and we've got Mutual Trust Life. Each carrier has a different reason why you'd want to use them. The problem with Forrester's program is that it requires too much life insurance. So the money that you're using to repurpose for paying for for the infinite bank with Foresters, the money you're using is incorrectly used because you're spending too much for the whole life portion of the life insurance. And unless you're doing the program because if death benefit is a focus of the program, then Foresters is your choice. But if you're not doing it for death benefit, if you're doing it for debt elimination and cash growth, then mutual trust, if they're young enough, is the program to go to. So it has to do with how much life insurance the company requires you to have. So Foresters is either $50,000 or $100,000, and Lafayette Life is only $10,000. So if I have the same amount of money, if I'm spending $1,000, but because I'm with Foresters, I have to pay for a $50,000 whole life. That $50,000 whole life is going to cost me $300 or $400. So that means I've only got $600 going towards cash growth. If I'm using mutual trust and I only have to have $10,000, that means I'm spending less than $100 on death benefit. That means I'm spending $900 on cash growth. So that's why the program would work faster with MTL.
Got it.
Okay. Also, there's an issue with the structure at Foresters. It's very difficult for the agent to manipulate that illustration to the point where you can schedule more money to go into cash growth. Your hands are kind of tied. Okay, with the MTL illustration, it's not. And there you go. Yep, your guy, whoever you referred, he probably is a candidate. Absolutely is. And you're just using the wrong software, using the wrong company. All right. Next, anybody else? Now, hold on. Let me go back. If your guy is over 70 years old, then you don't have a choice. Foresters is the only one that will take them. And that's the one time I usually use Foresters, is if they're over 70 years old.
And how much is the death benefit for the whole life policy with mutual trust life?
What?
Like, what does that start at?
The death benefit
Yeah.
starts at 110,000.
Okay. So Foresters is 50.
So
Wouldn't you be paying more?
The minimum whole life death benefit with mutual trust is 10,000. The minimum whole life death benefit with Foresters is 50.
Oh, okay. So you'd be paying more towards the benefit.
You're spending 5 times as much for whole life coverage with Foresters as you are with mutual trust. There you go. All right, anybody else?
Yeah, Scott, I got a question. So we were saying that for Foresters that you use them if they're 70 or above.
Yes.
And also I realized that their age has a lot to do with it, with about how much time that they're working or how much time they have left to put into it.
Sure.
What would be, I know that there's like an ideal range, but what would be too late or too old for them to kind of be a candidate? Because you mentioned the Walmart greeters.
Right.
So I was thinking about that.
So it depends on what their goal is. If they say, yeah, I want to use this and I'm gonna run this for 20 years and I'm 74 years old, not gonna work. Right. I mean, you got to be realistic. So, you're looking at, once you get into the 65 plus range, you're really looking at a 7 to 10 year program, because you want to do that 7-year so you can maintain the Tamra 7-pay solution, which is the most efficient way to structure these as non-MEX. So you want to do the 7-pay. Okay. So you're going to have the thing run at least 7 years, but they're always going to come with, at that point, a 10-year term rider. So if you go beyond 10 years, there's going to be a renewal date on that term. And if there's a renewal on the term and the person is now 75 years old, hold your socks on. That's going to be expensive as hell. Okay. So you have limitations based on time, what you're saying, right? Age, all those are important factors to dig into. All right. The alternative is to insure, and I just did this last night, insure somebody the individual who's too old. I had a 70-year-old gentleman last night We wrote the program on his 39-year-old son. He has an insurable interest. It's his son. He's the patriarch of the family. You can explain all those reasons away. It was an affordable program, and it's going to do what the guy wants to do. So, there's 5 parties to the insurance contract. There's the owner, the payor, the insured, the beneficiary, and the carrier. 5 parties, right? So if you have the owner, the payor, and the beneficiary be the person that you can't insure because they're not healthy or too old, then you can have one of their children, grandchildren be the target of the insurance. Okay. Anybody else? I want to talk about annuity stacking. That's my dog Chico. He wants to talk about annuity stacking too. All right. Woohoo!
Would you say from age, what's the best age to start at?
So these programs are designed that they have to be written on adults. So they have to be at
Right.
least 18 years old.
18 years old. Okay.
Yeah. So there's some logic and some discussion about when you would use an infinite bank program versus when you would use an IUL.
IUL.
Okay.
Right.
So in my opinion, IULs are great, especially for younger people. And I do these all the time. I'll start an IUL on anywhere from 14 days old up to 17 and 11 months old. I'll do an IUL on those people all the time. And I will plan to come back in and convert that IUL into an infinite bank in about 10 years, maybe 15 years. Okay.
Right.
If the person is a younger adult between the ages of 18 and maybe 35 or 40, then I'm still going to do maybe an IUL, maybe an infinite bank based on a par whole life. If the person is over 50 years old, I'm not touching an IUL for them. It may be easy.
Right.
Like the IULE is a great tool for Mutual of Omaha, but it's a death benefit focused IUL. It's not a growth focused IUL. And if I'm going to put somebody into an IUL, there's reasons why you would want to do it, but I'm not going to do it with that. I'm going to do it with a par whole life program because it's going to offer freedom to the client after time.
So like for a person who's, let's say, 60 and in an IUL, it would be best for them to
I wouldn't do it. I
transfer
would not
to
do an IUL on someone who's less than 60. I wouldn't do an IUL for anybody who's over 50. I'd do an IUL for people under age 50. That's my personal opinion.
So if you have an IUL and let's say you do an IUL the other day, you're 60, 55, 58. The best thing would be to transfer to an infinite bank.
Right. So you're asking, yeah, okay, great. So you're asking if someone has an already enforced IUL,
right?
Did you roll it or do a transfer, a 1035? Absolutely. Now, here's the other thing you got to be wary of. If you do a quick Google search for IUL lawsuits, you'll find hundreds of them out there because IULs that were written a while back, most of the time, they weren't structured correctly, and they're all starting to fail now. Okay, especially with the indexes aren't returning what they need to return in order to keep growth going. So I replace IULs with par whole life programs in that 55 to 70-year-old range all the time. And
Okay.
There's other things you can do too. Like there's par whole life programs they can be multi-focus programs. You can have a focus on death benefit. You can have a focus on cash growth. And you can have a focus on distribution. So depending on what the client wants to use the money for, we just did one of these the other day. We moved, I think, $140,000 from an IUL, from a good IUL, from one of our good companies, but we moved it into a par whole life program because the person wants to pay off their house. In that example, if they had taken a loan from their IUL, the loan rates are so much higher on the IUL that it was going to be onerous. There was not going to be a net delta. There was going to be no way for that person to create arbitrage within that IUL. But because they moved the money from the IUL into the par whole life, they can actually take the money. And with what just happened with the increase in dividend rates starting on December the 1st, where they're getting a 4x dividend now, that means that person's cost of money is less than 1%. And that's only if they encumber the entire program, which they're not going to. So they're still going to earn arbitrage, which they would not be able to do with the IUL. And the death benefit that they got is twice as big as the death benefit they had with the IUL.
Okay.
And that's because the way that money comes in the IUL, the cash is cash. In a par whole life, the cash is life insurance. So if I moved $140,000 of cash value into life insurance, that's going to create an additional $150,000, $200,000 of death benefit, not to mention whatever the premium is. So we crossed that suitability goal by having more death benefit than we started with. We have immediate access to the cash, at least 90% of it. We can use it in a tax exempt manner, and we're able to engineer arbitrage because we're earning more interest on that 140,000 than we're paying on the $110,000 loan that we took from ourselves. So it's the best of both worlds. It's a win-win-win-win situation.
Right. So if a wife and husband, let's say both of them have an IUL, and they are going to transfer to debt-free life or infinite banking concept, do they have to get separate debt-free life, or just do one thing to cover
so you
both of
can't
them?
transfer cash value from person A's policy into person B's policy. You can transfer cash value from person A to person A or person B to person B. Okay, but you can't cross it. Now, what you could do is you could surrender it and then put the cash value into somebody's checking account. And at that point, the money isn't determined to be person A or person B's money. And in that case, you could split it. You would say, okay, I want person A and person B to have a policy. I want person A's policy to get 50,000 and person B's policy to get 50,000. You could do that. And then finally, there's the only carrier I know that allows you to insure two people that does these programs on the same policy is mutual trust. They will allow you to have up to 8 people insured on the same program. So if you've got 4 adults that live in the house, mother, father, uncle, adult, child, you could put them all on the same program. And the interesting thing about being able to do that is that the way the tax code reads, 7702A reads, it's not based on how much life insurance you have. It's based on how much premium is being paid for life insurance. So while you may have in the cash growth bucket, you can have up to 10 times term as whole life. If I've got one person with the core whole life policy, and then another person, and that person has a 10 times term, then I've got another co-insured with a 10 times term, and another co-insured and another co-insured. That means I'm getting 40 times term times 1 part whole life, which means the cash value I can grow in that program is massive. And because you're talking about a 40x growth factor. And every single one of those term programs, this is the beauty of that, every single one of those terms is convertible. And you can convert them to their own private banks afterwards. So going back to your question, you could do that piece. You could dump all that money into a bank account and then move it into 2 separate programs. Or you could simply say, this is Mary's policy. I'm going to move it over to Mary's policy and then put John's policy as a rider on it. Now they're both insured. And you've got all the cash over here. That's another way to do it. Does that help you?
So what happens if one person passes off? What happens if to the policy?
Gotcha. So if the primary insured passes, let's say it's the wife is the primary insured. When she passes, there's a term rider on the husband, unless you've converted it. Okay. So what would happen is the wife's core policy and term would pay the benefit, and the husband would be left with that term that's convertible if you're young enough. So there's a lot of yeah ifs and yeah buts and what would happen. You can go all the way. There's a deep rabbit hole here. Okay, but the idea is you can structure it for all that stuff. You can list contingent owners and all that other pieces. I've got a program that was started by a grandfather on the grandson, with the contingent owner being the wife, grandmother, and then the co-contingent owner being the grandson's father. So the way it's going to happen is if the grandfather dies, the grandmother becomes the owner. If the grandmother dies and the grandfather died, the father becomes the owner. If all those
Okay.
people died, then the grandchild becomes the owner as long as they're 18, which they are.
Okay.
There's all kinds of ways you can structure it. I'm not trying to confuse
Perfect.
you. Hopefully I'm helping you.
Yeah, I mean, a while ago you made the statement that, there's a holy cow. I think it is
There you go.
getting
Holy cow.
more.
Right on, man. Love
Yeah,
it.
it is getting, much greater because the opportunity that exists is getting greater.
Gotcha. All right. So now what I'm going to show you, this is a presentation that I did a while back. This is an infinite bank strategy. All right. Everybody that's listening, here's the thing. Do not ever say I told you to take a loan from a life insurance policy and start an annuity. I have never said that. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. I'm going to show you a strategy that you can kind of do that, but you can't start an annuity with borrowed money, folks. So don't say you can, don't think you can. And all you're going to do if you try to do something like that is you're going to get your license revoked. Okay. So let's be real. All right. Everybody got that? All right. So I'm going to share my screen. You guys see my screen? Does it say building a private pension? No? Yes? No? No. How about now? Woohoo! All right, here we go. And I got 20 minutes to get through this. I'll get through this in 10. All right, so building a private pension. So what is a private pension? What an annuity is a private pension. What Social Security is a public pension. What a 401k is a pension. Okay, they're all pensions, right? So here's what we do. So, oh, man, went too fast. Sorry. How do I guarantee my money will grow and last for the rest of my life? So you can do it with an infinite bank, but the growth that you get is slow, and the export, the amount of cash you get from the program is low. It's not bad. It's better than zero, and it's better than putting money in a savings account and using it only once. Okay, but what about if I could do something different? All right. So remember, anytime I say that we're going to drip an annuity, what I'm saying is if I'm taking money out of my infinite bank and putting it back into my checking account, the cash that I would make as income is now freed up because that $10,000, if that's what I took, I'm going to use that to replace the $10,000 of income that I was making. And I'm going to use that to pay for that, whatever that $10,000 is going to pay for, my car payment, my gasoline, my food. I'm using the $10,000 I borrowed to pay for that stuff. And the $10,000 that I made, my income, I'm using that to buy the annuity. Everybody understand the distinction, right? I'm not using borrowed money to start an annuity. All right. All right. I'll give you guys a moment to read that. And this is exemplifying what I said just 2 minutes ago. Infinite banks can be used to create a private pension. Infinite banks can be used to create the income streams. The problem is the loans are small, the cash growth is slower, and it does require some management on the individual's part. You got to keep track of it. You got to follow it. You got to make sure that you're not over encumbering your program. But you are liquid. You have access to the money anytime you want for whatever reason. And the only person who has to agree with the reason is you. That's the beauty of an infinite bank. Okay. Now, what if you decide to use this? This is kind of what we're just talking about. There's nothing that says that you can't use the money from an infinite bank for anything you want it for. What I was talking about just a minute ago about using it to start an annuity, you can't use borrowed money to start an annuity. I can use borrowed money to buy a property. I can use borrowed money to pay debt. I can use borrowed money to buy gold. There's nothing that says I can't, okay? But I can't put that borrowed money into an annuity. So we don't. Okay. Now look at an annuity. So what happens if I make a series of annuities? And let's use, hold on. Oh, please. Let's say I have $120,000 and I want to create a series of annuities that are $10,000 each. So I'm going to write 12 $10,000 annuities. What did I just do? If I, instead of putting $120,000 into one annuity, I just spread it out over 12. Everybody, hopefully you folks understand how annuities work and that there's a crediting strategy associated with every annuity. It's either a 1 year or a 2 year strategy for if you're looking at indexed annuities, and it has a specific starting point, December the 30th, where it looks at how much that index made over the course of a year till December the 30th next year, and then it credits the money to the program. So that's that period, okay? If I called it wrong, if I put all that $120,000 into that one annuity, and that annuity happened to be at an uptick in the market, and then the market went down, then it came slightly back, that means for that year, I'm going to have zero gain if it didn't make it back to at least where I started. Okay. But what happens if I spread it out? Instead of having it so I've got $120,000 starting on December the 30th, maybe I've got 10,000 starting on December the 30th, and 10,000 starting on January the 30th, and 10,000 starting on February 28th. Okay. That means I'm going to have this one that ran like this, and then this one that ran like this, and then this one that ran like this, and then this one that ran like this. So what I just did was I guaranteed that if there's a point from 1 year, or if I'm using 2 year strategies, if maybe 2 years, I just guaranteed that I'm going to have a gain. But if I put all that money into one annuity and I did not time it correctly, and nobody's got a crystal ball that works, okay, and I didn't time it correctly, then what that means is I just guaranteed my client to have zero gain. No loss, but zero gain. All right. So the idea is you want to spread it out, spread out the timing risk over multiple annuities. And that's why using money as a derived annuity, using money from an infinite bank makes sense, because I don't want to take it all out once. Okay. I can, but I don't want to. I want to drip money. Okay. And let's say, here's another example. We were talking about how you can't use borrowed money to start a program. If I have, let's say I make $100,000 a year and I've got $200,000 in my annuity or in my infinite bank. Is it plausible that I could start a $150,000 annuity that year? It is not, because I only make 100 grand. I can't say that I borrowed 100,000 and replace that $100,000 of income. I can't take 150 and say I started a $150,000 annuity with the 100,000 I made, because I don't make enough money. So you have a speed limit that you can start these programs with. Okay. It has to be plausible. It has to be legal. All right. So that's why we're limiting. So I'm going to take that 100,000 because that's all I make per year. I'm going to replace my entire year's income, $100,000, with the money that I borrowed. And that income that I make, I'm going to use that to create these individual annuities. And then I'm going to use that $100,000 to pay my regular living expenses. That's the concept. All right. So now if you see your screen, I'm taking periodic drips. So remember I said $100,000, right? Do I make $100,000 all in one shot? I do not. I get paid quarterly, monthly. Maybe if I'm in the insurance or financial planning industry, maybe I get paid weekly. Okay. I don't make it all at once. So I shouldn't start it all at once. Okay. So that's where you see these 12 little buckets, right? So this is the process. I need to establish a unit size. So if I'm thinking through this and I've got $200,000 in my infinite bank and I make $120,000 a year, then my unit size would be 120 divided by 12, which is 10,000. So my unit size on the derivative annuity, dripped annuity, would be $10,000. And I'm going to start taking the money from my infinite bank, replacing the income that I'm now using to buy these annuities periodically based on when I make my money. So if I make $10,000 a month, then once a month I'm taking a $10,000 loan from my Infinite Bank, using that to pay my living expenses, and the money I just earned, I'm using that to buy the annuity. So I'm creating a stack of 12 annuities. I'm completely eliminating the timing issue, and I'm pretty much guaranteeing that in any given year, in any month, from January to January or February to February, you're going to find some months where you're going to have a gain. But if you don't time it right, you're going to have an angry client because you're not going to be making any gain for them. It's a lot of work, folks. If you're doing this for your clients, it's a lot of work. Okay. But ultimately, it's what's right for your client, and it distributes their risk and it guarantees their income streams, which is what this is all about. Step 2, unit sizes. So I like 10, 20, 30. Now, if you're in the annuity game, you understand that there are some products that we have out there where you can't do it with a $10,000 program. You have to have at least 20. There's at least one product I know out there that you have to have at least 25. So, it just depends. Maybe you can't do a derivative annuity every month. Maybe you make 120,000, but you want to use $20,000 units because you want to use that one program with that one company that has a $20,000 minimum. Okay. So all that means is that you're not doing it all in 1 year. You're just spreading it out. I'm going to do one of these derivative annuities every 2 months. Okay. And this is what that's about. Are you going to be doing it every month, every 2 months, once a quarter, twice a year, once a year, once every other year? Whatever. It's whatever your client's program will allow and what their goal is. Okay. Let's talk about that for a second. So if you're earning money and the money hits your checking account, and I borrowed money and that money hits my checking account, I'm going to have to pay income on the money I earned. I don't have to pay income on the money that I borrowed. Now, if I'm a W-2, W-4 employee, the taxes are already taken out. I don't have to worry about that. In either case, the money that I'm using is non-qualified money. Okay, so I can set up a Roth annuity every other year. Why do I say that? You're allowed to set up a Roth every year and make a contribution to a Roth every year, but there's a ceiling of how much you can make, and it's $6,500 or $7,500 depending on your age. Right this minute, it's going to change. So if I'm looking at $6,500 a year, that doesn't meet that $10,000 threshold, which is the minimum for some of these annuity programs that we do. So what does that mean? That means you have to do it in that once a year piece where you can actually contribute for the previous year and the current year at the same time. What I'm talking about specifically is between January and April the 14th. In that one window, I can contribute, for example, on January the 5th of 2024, I will be able to put in $6,500 for 2023 and $6,500 of 2024 into a Roth annuity. That's $13,000, which beats that $10,000 threshold. Why is this advantageous? Because it's a Roth annuity. I'm not going to pay tax on it when I draw the money out. I'm not going to pay tax on the growth. It is a Roth annuity, which is way better than a standard annuity. But there's a speed limit. There's a maximum contribution that you can make. And you intend to do that trick where you're doing the double contribution over that one period of time before taxes are due. You only have that 4.5 month window to do it. If you do that and create a Roth annuity series as part of your 12 unit stack of annuities in a derivative annuity stack, it will increase the performance of your annuity stack as far as income is concerned by 16%. Because what you're doing is you're eliminating tax on at least 2, unless you time it great, at least 2, maybe 3 annuities. Anybody got that?
Right. So you can only do that during that one period in time.
Right.
And you can only do it every other year, right?
And you can do it every year, but the annuity size limit is 10,000. If your maximum contribution is 6,500 for a Roth, then you can't do it unless you're doing it that one time per year that you can do a double. And so if I do it for 2023 and 2024 and coming up in January, I've already made my contribution for 2024, which means I can't do that process again until the 2025-2026 year, because I've already made my 2023-2024 contribution. With me?
Right.
All right. So this is what a $10,000 annuity stack looks like. So if I do this and I let this thing run for 15 years, okay, which is, and I'm using for those of you that are doing this at home, I'm looking at the Athene Performance Elite 15. This is where I got these numbers from to run this illustration. Okay, so I'm going to build $10,000 stacks. I'm going to take a $10,000 money that I was earning as income, and I'm going to use that to buy an annuity each month. Or better yet, I'm going to build that money into a series of programs that I go through underwriting with so that I can start them whenever I decide to send in the check for them. So I'm not necessarily going to do an annuity application every month. I'm going to do 3 a quarter. Okay. So now I've got an annuity that's going to start. It's going to have a starting date. At least one of these annuities will have a starting date every month of the year. So I have completely distributed my timing risk and almost guaranteed that I'm going to have a gain in some of these annuities every year. Whereas if I put all that money into one annuity, I'm running the risk of having years where I have 0 gain across the board. You guys get how powerful that is? Yeah. All right. This is what it looks like. Let that sink in. So I'm going to turn a $120,000 annuity stack into $280,000 of annuity value. And in that annuity value, I've created from distributions only, not from annuitization, just from distributions, I've created a $14,000 per year income. And if I actually annuitize it in year 15 or year 16, then that income level actually doubles. It'll become a $28,000 per year income. Actually, it's not quite double. It's about 25,000. Okay. So that's massive. It cost me $120,000 to create a $25,000 per year income. Sign me up, right? And if you're one of those high earners, and let's say you're making $250,000 a year, okay, maybe you do 2 of these a year. Maybe you build 10 of these, and your $250,000 that you're making right now becomes $375,000 on the day you retire. And that's the power of these programs, folks. That's what we can do. We can have it so that when people retire through the use of an infinite bank in conjunction with a correct annuity stack creation, that we create permanent income streams that people will not be able to outlive and that will be ever increasing. Because if I'm taking distributions from an annuity, and in this case, the PE15's got a 5% distribution. If I'm only taking 5%, but my average gain is 8%, that means every year I'm getting a 3% raise. Did you just have a holy cow moment? Hopefully you did. So what happens if you do different unit sizes? Well, there you go. See, Keon, he's explaining this to his friend in the other room right now.
Actually, I was explaining it to my wife. She was just like, "Oh, I wish I could be on this call so I could hear what he's saying." And I was just telling her that you're actually going in depth. I actually have a few cases in the works. Most of my cases lately have been advanced market, so this is good for me. So I'm not just getting a surface level presentation that we give the our clients. I feel like I'm getting some behind the scenes information.
This is deep stuff, right? This is save the last part of this call for an advanced topic. This is about as advanced as they get until you get a Series 65 license. Then it's a completely different discussion. All right. There you go. That's the end of that presentation. So the whole idea here, folks, is that you can leverage money that's stored in these accounts. You can make it way bigger than it ever was before, and it doesn't take a lot to do it. So and I just ran one of these about 30 minutes before this call started. And what I did for that guy, it was a $250 a month IBC. That's all he needed to get to do a $10,000 annuity stack. That's it. So it starts with a $250 a month IBC, and then he was able to do a derivative annuity 3 times a year after about 7 years, because the cash had built up in there. She just started dripping annuities actually it was every 4 or 5 months he was dripping an annuity. So we got the annuity stack built in year 7, 8, 9. And then by the time he's ready to retire, 7 years later, we used 7-year annuity programs, which if you're guessing, the one I would recommend is the Security Benefit Growth 7, because you can get a 240% or 250% par rate on a index, which is the UBS Maya index, which for 0 points earns an average of 16% per year. And if you want to pay 1 point, the average is 23% per year. That doesn't mean you won't have years that are growing at 0. You will. Okay. But what that means is for that year that you grow at 0, the next year you're growing at 30-something%. So it's massive. And if you do that strategy I just showed you folks about staggering it and segregating each little small component of your annuity, then you get this massive growth and you'll see the growth. And then all of a sudden, you'll get those calls. Hey, Forehand, you told me this one was going to make money. Yep, I did. And this one didn't. Yep, it didn't. But the other two made 42%. Are you happy about the 42% you made with the other two? Or are you upset about the 0% you didn't lose with that one? All right. So I got 2 minutes if anybody else has any other questions. Come on, Keon. I see you thinking. I see the smoke, buddy.
So
Do you mind putting your contact info up one more time, please?
So you want my contact info?
Yeah, you had a screen, but it disappeared quickly with your contact.
Yeah, there it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Come on, Keon, ask me, or Bill, somebody ask me a hard question. I like hard questions. Come on, guys. Ladies.
It's not a hard question, but the whole Roth annuity thing, it's news to me. I'm a rookie with annuities. I haven't gotten into those, but that's something the way you explained it, you can only get one of those. You'll only set one of those up once a year, I guess, right?
So you can set up a Roth and you can make a Roth contribution annually. So that's all we're doing. All we're doing is if you have a Roth already set up, you're going to stop contributing to it. You're going to roll it into this. Okay. If you don't have a Roth set up, then we're gonna start setting up a Roth annuity in place of you starting a Roth IRA. That's it.
Right.
That's all we're doing.
Right. But you're gonna have to try to get 12 of these going one in every month. Only one of the 12 is going to be a Roth, right?
If you're trying to do it in 1 year, I didn't say you had to do it in 1 year.
That's true. Yeah, you can do it over time.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only way you could do it.
So if you're doing, like, if your program is you're going to set up one per quarter, you'll be able to set up 2 Roth annuities, and that's in that one per quarter route. Okay.
Okay.
If you're going to do one per year, then you'll be able to set up 6 Roth annuities. Okay.
Okay.
That wasn't a hard question, Bill. Come on, man.
No, I don't think I can come up with a hard question for you. You've probably heard most all of them by now.
Hello, Miss Kristen. I see that you unmuted.
Yes, I just want to thank you very much for this opportunity to learn. I got my license in August. We moved and there's been a lot that's happened. So I'm just now getting on board. I did a smart UL for my husband for my first policy yesterday.
That's a good program.
I still have a JOB, but definitely like the first quarter, I want to leave that unrewarding position. And so I am, even while I'm at work, I have a closed office. It's nice and quiet. So I'm like listening all the time to everything that I possibly can to learn. I understand I have to start slower and then work up to these advanced programs, but this is definitely where I want to go because I am very passionate. I was not taught anything about finances growing up. I was raised in a very strict religion. You didn't need money. The world was going to end. So don't do it. Just give all your money to the church. And so as an adult, I'm like, as I've come out of that, it's now, what the F did I do? I have nothing. How do I do better? And how do I help others? Because there's so many people that don't have a clue at all on what to do, even that weren't raised in that religion. So I am just absorbing as much as I can. to try to not only help myself, right? Because I got to figure this out, but also be able to help protect families and help others that have similar backgrounds to me really be able to understand things.
Gotcha. Well, welcome to the party. These
Thanks.
programs for people that don't have retirement programs set up using this strategy that I just outlined for you folks, you'll be able to set them up with a retirement program that's going to certainly replace what the Social Security Administration is getting ready to take away, but create a fairly solid income for people. It's going to take about 4 or 5 years. So that, your client has to be willing to contribute. At the end of the day, if they can't contribute or won't contribute, it doesn't matter. They're going to be stuck with whatever they can get from their company and whatever Social Security ends up offering them, and they're probably going to, unfortunately, probably end up with their handout to their family. But it doesn't have to be that way, and this is a solution that will work. And that's the beautiful thing I said about this before. This speaks a language that can't lie. Math doesn't lie. Okay, so it is what it is. All right. Well, folks, thank you for coming. Hopefully got something out of this. I appreciate you all.
Thank you very much.
Spending your Thursday night with me, and I'm going to get rolling for my next appointment. And this will be up on YouTube. I don't know, probably whenever my assistant gets to it. So see ya. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it, man.
Bye, guys.